How's everybody doing? I'm Jay Elsen, and this is Coyote Corner. Well, Dakota Days always brings an added level of excitement to Vermilion every fall. But this year's 100th anniversary of the University of South Dakota's homecoming tradition featured a little extra shine, specifically in the form of what the Coyote football team was wearing on Saturday afternoon. For more on the introduction of Coyote Chrome to our vernacular, here's Alex Heinert.
When you think of the uniform scheme for University of South Dakota football, traditional is typically the word that comes to mind. The Coyotes' classic red and white uniforms have been worn at every home contest for as long as anyone can remember. But this past weekend, as part of the 100th Dakota Days celebration, the traditional USD home jerseys and helmet were given the week off. In their place were these. The new look uniforms didn't come together overnight, but instead were the byproduct of a year-long research and development process led by USD Director of Football Operations, Luke Groth.
This whole project started kind of after last season. Coach Glenn had seen a few other schools do a chrome helmet before and wanted me to do some research, figure out if it's something that we could do here. Coach Williams and I actually sat down with Rydell, helmet manufacturer, Hydrographics company, and Adidas, all at the National Convention in January. After we had some initial artwork done, they finally took our ideas and got them put on paper. We had our first prototype helmet sent to us back in May and kind of went from there. Had a couple minor changes to it. And what you see on the field this Saturday is the final product.
Before the final Coyote Chrome product was ready for order, Groth and Athletic Director David Herbster, among others, started looking at how to finance the $57,000 tab. Enter Coach Joe Glenn and Coyote Nation.
We put a plan together and we found out exactly what we needed to go fundraise. And Coach Glenn took that on himself, took on the fundraising aspect.
Getting people involved with your football program. Almost all old football players, all of them were old Coyotes. We say a special thank you to all the guys that helped make it possible.
With the money raised and the uniforms and helmets delivered, the process of deciding how to debut them to the team became the next problem for Groth and company to solve.
We decided to unveil it Sunday night after practice. Guys didn't know it was coming. We had our 4 captains dressed up in it. We put a GoPro camera on Drew Iddings, and it went over huge. The guys went crazy.
When our captains walked into the dome dressed in the full uniform, our players went nuts.
Once the teaser video was released online at the beginning of D-Days week, interest spread like wildfire across every social media platform you can imagine.
My phone and Twitter and Facebook have been blowing up the last couple days. Seems like every former Coyote that I stay in touch with, calling me, texting me. I wanted to see a picture of what it looked like on Tuesday night, and I told them, nope, you gotta wait.
The wait ended on Thursday when the full chrome uniforms were presented to the public. With the design now out there, Coyote fans and especially the football team have had nothing but good things to say regarding their new threads.
When I first saw them, I was like, is this real? Like, are they serious about this?
Really good, exciting, amazing, real good.
Sexy.
While the feedback has been positive across the board, it's clear that the chrome uniform combination won't be taking the place of the normal home reds anytime soon.
Obviously, it's an alternate uniform. I don't want fans to get confused that this is something that they're going to see every week, because it's not. You'll see them again this year, later in the year, and for a big game towards the end of the season.
Along with providing excitement and exposure to the program, Groth also hopes the new uniforms bring an edge in the team's recruiting efforts.
We have to continue to recruit at a high level and beat teams in the Valley, not just in the fall, but we need to beat them in the wintertime, the recruiting season as well. And this is one of the avenues that we're going to go down and try to reach more student athletes.
And if those prospective Coyotes choose USD with an assist from these new uniforms, even the traditionalists out there will be ready to embrace the change.
More chrome. If we win, more chrome.
Well, more Chrome indeed. Luke Groth mentioned that Hydra Graphics, the Oregon-based company USD went through to create the helmet design, has a tier system with which it ranks its helmets on. The Yotes Chrome look coming in at a 9. And the scale, by the way, goes up to 14, the level the University of Oregon comes in at, with the price tag there reaching a cool $1,000 per helmet, Jay.
Yeah, well, you know what they say, Alex. Looking good doesn't come cheap. Well, stay tuned. When we come back, we'll get our first look at the Coyote Chrome in action. Highlights from the D-Day's battle with Northern Iowa coming up next.
Coyote Corner on Midco Sports Network is presented by BillionAuto.com.
Not only would South Dakota celebrate Dakota Days with a fresh look, as Alex just showed us, but the Coyotes would also have a fresh, albeit familiar face back under center. Kevin Earl, who missed the previous 4 games with a broken thumb, returned to the lineup to face a Northern Iowa team that he put up career numbers against last season. Earl threw for 370 yards and accounted for 5 total touchdowns in the Yotes' thrilling 37-31 double overtime win in Cedar Falls. Earl hoped to at least replicate that feat Saturday as USD played host to UNI in the 98 Dakota Days football game. And he looked well on his way early on. Opening possession of the game, Earl buys some time and finds his tight end, Aaron Ramsey. He takes it 38 yards into Panthers territory. First down, Coyotes. Later in the drive, USD facing another 3rd and long, and again, Earl converts. Nice leaping catch by Eric Shuford, covers 18 yards. Coyotes in business at the UNI 15. Trevor Bama finishes it off 2 plays later. Big hole off left tackle. 17-yard touchdown, his 3rd of the year. And the Yotes are on the board first. It's 7-3 USD in the second when Northern Iowa finds the end zone. Breon Carnes over the middle to Kevin Vereen. 28-yard touchdown. Panthers led 10-7 at the half. UNI's defense would make the first big play of the 3rd quarter. Earl's pass picked off by Brett McMacken. Part of a huge day for the sophomore who had 3 sacks to go along with that INT. Panthers cash it in a few plays later. David Johnson powers in from a yard out to extend Northern Iowa's lead to 10. The teams would trade field goals before the end of the 3rd. We'd go to the 4th with UNI leading 20-10. Coyotes needed to get something going on offense, and they do. Earl with another conversion on 3rd and long. This one going to Riley Donovan for 24 yards. Donovan caught 3 passes for 62 yards on the day. Then it's Jasper Sanders, the senior, showing some great vision as he streaks 33 yards to the UNI 29. 2 snaps later, Earl looking for 6. Picture-perfect pass to Brant Van Rukel. 25-yard scoring strike caps a 9-play, 99-yard drive. The extra point was blocked, so USD still trails 20-16. And just as they had all day, the Panthers respond. Sawyer Cole-Morgan finds a wide-open Doris Fountain from 15 yards out, and it's once again a 2-score game. USD still had time, and Earl had him on the move again, but the drive comes to a halt right here. Panthers intercept Earl for the 2nd time on the day, and they would manage to run out the clock from there. Number 21, Northern Iowa, holds off South Dakota by a count of 27-16. Coyotes actually outgained the Panthers in the loss. Kevin Earl, a big part of that. He was solid in his first game back, completing 17 of 29 passes for 260 yards, 1 touchdown, and those 2 interceptions. He was also sacked 7 times. With the loss, the Coyotes dropped to 2-4 on the season and 0-2 in the Valley.
We put ourselves in tough situations, getting backed up and taking penalties and putting ourselves in 3rd and long is difficult. And, you know, that's what they did well today, and I think that was the difference in the game.
We just got to stay positive. I mean, we showed we can play. We can play with any team in the Valley. We're right there. We just got to make that next step. Better on special teams, better on offense, more consistent on defense. You know, that's all we got to do is just be more consistent.
It was a tough way to end Dakota Days, but the news wasn't all bad. We'll pull some positives out of the loss to UNI with head coach Joe Glenn when Coyote Corner returns.
Coyote Corner on Midco Sports Network is presented by BillionAuto.com.
And welcome back to Kyle Corner. Jay Elsen down at the Dakota Dome with head coach of the University of South Dakota Coyotes, Joe Gled. And Joe, Saturday, not the result you wanted, but let's focus for a second on just the atmosphere. 10,000 plus on hand. You had the shiny new uniforms. D-Day certainly had the look and feel of a big-time college football game.
Yeah, great parade. Walking right down Main Street, past the president's house. All the alums back. It was set up. We just didn't follow through on our part. Everything else was perfect.
A big crowd had a lot to cheer about on the opening possession. Kevin Earl, in his first game back, leads the team on an 11-play, 76-yard scoring drive, which included 3 third-down conversions of at least 10 yards. And if there was any question about how that hand was feeling, I think he answered it right there.
Yeah, it's a 106-yard drive. We had 2 15-yard penalties that we had to work through on that drive, and fantastic drive, way to start the game out, and Coyotes jump up 7-0.
Yeah, from that point, though, you and I really tightened up defensively, especially up front where the Panthers took control in the trenches. They held you to 26 yards rushing. They also sacked Kevin 4 times in that first half. That group's awful good.
Yeah, I'll tell you what happened. Their punter hit a punt, and it landed and stopped on the 1-yard line. Couldn't punch it out, and they ganged up on us. And they do have a front seven that I think 6 out of the 7 are seniors, really, really good football players, and I give all the credit to their front 7. They were tough.
Now, despite all the struggles offensively, though, you're down just 10-7 at the half, but tough start to the third quarter. Defense forces a 3-and-out, but on the first play from scrimmage for you, Kevin gets picked off, and it sets up another UNI touchdown.
Well, that's the biggest mistake he made in the game. He played pretty darn well. I think he threw for 260 yards. His percentage was in the high 50s, I believe. Threw a great touchdown pass to Brant Van Rukel, but he started the second half with a high-low read, and he tried to force the ball in to the high part, and they were all over it, and intercepted it, and took the momentum, seized the momentum to start the second half, and it really hurt us.
As good players do, Kevin shook that one off, and with the team down 10 in the fourth quarter, he engineers a 99-yard scoring drive. You don't see a lot of these. He caps it with that touchdown pass to Brant Van Rukel. Just a really nice possession for you guys. Got you within 4.
Well, that's a 99-yard drive, and as I said, a 106-yard drive. So we're capable of doing that against a good defense. It just the field position, the sacks, their punting game returns. We just laid an egg in special teams, especially in kickoff return and punt return. That, in fact, was the difference in the game.
Yeah, and every time it seemed like you guys might be grabbing momentum like you did with the Brant Van Rukel touchdown, Panthers would take it right back. They did it again down the stretch, ultimately escaped with a 20-7-16 win. You mentioned a lot of it there, I think. As you go through this Valley season, no time to dwell on it. It's on to Missouri State. Both teams looking for their first Valley win this weekend in Springfield.
Yeah, this will be a tough game. They're reeling a little bit. They've lost 2 close ones. We're 0-2 in the league. Somebody got to get the Missouri Valley Football Conference a victory here, and it'll be another fight. We know that, just like this last one was, just like the next however many games we got left to play, 5 or 6. It's going to be a battle, and that's the whole league.
All right, well, good luck to you this weekend. Thanks again for your time, Joe.
Thank you.
Now that we've heard from the head coach, time for a little Fields vision. Midco SN analyst Andre Fields will weigh in on Saturday's storylines when we come back.
Coyote Corner on Midco Sports Network is presented by BillionAuto.com.
And welcome back. Well, there's vision, and then there's Fields vision. And here to give us a little extra insight on USD's 27-16 loss to Northern Iowa is Midco SN analyst Andre Fields. And it's time for Saturday's storylines, Andre. The biggest story coming into this game was the return of quarterback Kevin Earl. But before we get to you, let's hear what Earl had to say about his first game back.
Yeah, it felt great to be able to strap the pads on again and play in front of a big crowd in such a big game. Felt good to get out there again, get the juices flowing, but it's tough we couldn't come away with a win on this one.
All right, the numbers were pretty solid. 17 of 29 for 260 yards, 1 touchdown, and 2 interceptions. Nothing earth-shattering, but I think encouraging is a word that sums up his performance pretty well.
Yeah, I would say that's encouraging, Jay, because he came back and kind of went right back where he left off. We really didn't expect to see something earth-shattering, like you said, but we also didn't want to see anything terrible, and we didn't see that. And the one thing I was looking for most was how his velocity and grip on the football would be, and he seemed to be doing a perfectly fine job with that.
Yeah, I don't think if there was questions as to how ready that hand was, right, I think he answered them just because that looked like a Kevin Earl ball coming out of his hand all day. And a lot of accuracy. You know, he made a couple of bad throws, but, you know, any quarterback's going to make some bad throws. I don't think any of it was could be attributed directly just from the layoff.
Right, I wouldn't think so either. I think a lot of that just had to do with how the flow of the game was going and maybe some of the jitters that maybe came with being in front of the homecoming crowd.
Yeah, well, Earl might have had an even bigger day had he had a little more time to throw it on Saturday. The Coyote offensive line struggled to keep their quarterback upright, surrendering a season-high 7 sacks.
They were just bringing the blitz late, and it's something we got to pick up. We pick it up in practice all the time. It's just mentally we got to be sharper and be prepared to pick it up.
All right, Andre, now that Kevin Earl is back in the lineup, one of the goals has to be keeping him healthy. One way to do that is to make sure he stays on his feet. We heard Schofield talk about it. They're just going to have to do a better job going forward.
Yeah, and I think what that was a little bit of game planning by Northern Iowa. You knew that they knew he was coming off an injury. They were going to try to attack him. They sent some late blitzes, and the Yotes just didn't do a good job of adjusting to that game plan.
The good news is it's a correctable thing, and
Yes.
this is an experienced offensive line, one that has shown that they can be very good in pass protection and run blocking as well. All right, well, field position also played a huge role in this football game. You and I had a lot of short fields to work with, many of which were the result of poor punt coverage. You and I's Chad Owens returned 6 punts for 103 yards. That's an average of 17.7, and that's not going to work.
No, it's not going to work. You know, it's 3 phases to football: offense, defense, special teams, with special teams being the one that is the only one that averages about 20 yards of field position per play. You can't give up that type of field position, especially when you're playing from a short field already.
Yeah, and overall, as we get into our final point here, I thought the defense actually had a pretty good day overall, especially when you consider what they were up against in terms of field position. The Coyotes held you and I to 361 yards of total offense. All-American running back David Johnson managed just 42 yards on 14 carries. So some things there to build on for sure, but a couple things you'd like to see more of. That being quarterback pressure and turnovers. No sacks, no forced turnovers for the Yotes on Saturday.
And you got to have it. You got to have it as a defense. You have to get the offense more possessions by getting turnovers, and you have to get pressure because you can't just sit back and let them dictate to the defense. Defense has played good all year, better than what we expected maybe coming into the season, but they're going to have to continue to get better, and it's going to start with being able to get pressure and force turnovers.
And if you add the quarterback sacks, you add the turnovers into the equation with the amount of improvement that we've seen front to back on the defense, there's enough talent there for this to be a pretty darn good unit, into the future, because they got a lot of guys coming back next year too.
Absolutely.
So we'll see how that plays out over the course of the rest of the season. All right, well, with this one behind them, the Coyotes now move on to Missouri State. We'll preview this week's matchup with the Bears next.
Coyote Corner on Midco Sports Network is presented by BillionAuto.com.
And welcome back. Well, South Dakota will take another shot at picking up its first Valley victory on Saturday afternoon against Missouri State in Springfield. Now, like the Coyotes, the Bears are 0-2 in the league after a heartbreaking 32-28 loss at South Dakota State. They also dropped a close one the week before, 14-7 to Youngstown State. Now, very few guys know the ins and outs of Missouri State football better than Art Haynes, who's in his 35th season as the voice of the Bears, and he joins us now on the phone. Art, tough one last week for Missouri State. The Bears led South Dakota State 28-17 going into the fourth quarter in Brookings, but end up losing to the Jackrabbits. What went wrong down the stretch of that one?
Well, the common denominator of the last 2 games is lack of consistent offense by Missouri State. They threw for 85 yards for the game against Youngstown State and just 113 against South Dakota State. So they've become kind of one-dimensional, and a lot of the time that dimension is quarterback Kiera Harris running. But they didn't have very much of that in the second half. Only 2 first downs against the Jackrabbits until later on in the fourth quarter. And meanwhile, South Dakota State has got a couple of tall receivers, and they were able to get the ball to them effectively. They had some mismatch issues there and just lack of offense in the second half.
In your opinion, what else has to change for the Bears to be more successful going forward?
Going into the season, there were some question marks, but the offensive line was not believed to be one of them. 3 of the 5 preseason all-conference first-team picks on the O-line were from Missouri State. That offensive line needs to reassert itself and control the line of scrimmage. They need to run the ball more effectively, and then hopefully that'll open up some other things.
How about the defensive side? Any concerns there?
Yeah, the Missouri State defense really has played pretty well. The corners are young. They've got a transfer and a true freshman, and those are the matchups that South Dakota State exploited last week. But the safeties are both seniors. One of them's an All-American. The linebacking play has been good. The defensive line was completely rebuilt this year, and they've stood in there and played pretty tough. So they're going to have to spend this week coming up with some more answers offensively to put Paris in a position to succeed and maybe to do something to help those corners in coverage.
USD and Missouri State have split a couple of close games the past 2 seasons. Are you expecting anything other than another good football game between 2 teams that appear very evenly matched?
No, not at all. And in fact, I look for that just about every week in the league. If you look at what's happened, with the 2 being both 0-2, it is imperative for both of them to get a win on Saturday, and unfortunately only one of them is going to succeed.
And that again was Art Haynes, longtime voice of the Missouri State Bears. They again will play host to South Dakota on Saturday afternoon in Springfield. Kickoff is slated for 2 p.m. at the newly renovated Robert W. Plaster Stadium. I will be making the trip as well, so be sure to follow along on Twitter at Elsen, Midco SN. Now, between now and then, don't forget to check out MidcoSN.com for the latest on USD football with the Coyote Corner video blog. Alex Heinert and I will take another look at the matchup with the Bears in a post on Wednesday. All right, that is our time for this week. Thanks for watching. We'll see you back here next week for another episode of Coyote Corner.